in Jesus' name. So would you please join me in giving a warm round of applause for, and a welcome to Pastor Jared. Thank you.
We'll see if we get that going. Yep. Whew. This is a smooth transition, guys. Nothing to see here. All right. So I know you probably think Chris sounds like an American, but for us, he's been over here 11 years. He sounds Irish to us. For those of you that are like, I don't know what you're talking about, he sounds American. I promise you, for us, he sounds Irish. So that's the beauty of. So I'm going to try to, while I'm talking, get the screen up here. So this is all part of it. This is the plan. It's smooth, guys. Please be with me today. I had a little bit of a cold, and like yesterday, I had no voice. Like I was like, I don't know how I'm going to preach tomorrow without being able to talk. So connection lost. Come on, Betsy. What do we got here? Could not connect. You playing with my emotions now. All right.
Authority over it in Jesus' name.
That's right.
There you go.
Come on.
That'll work.
So this worked seamlessly earlier. So I knew that it was going to do this to me in front of you guys. There we go. All right. There we go. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself first because I realize that I look like a big ogre up here. And so I've learned when I go somewhere new, I should tell you a little bit about myself so you realize that there are people that love me. This is my wife, Amy. She's actually the shortest one. She's not even 5 foot tall. And then my son, Gibson, and my daughter, Alice. I've been a pastor for over 20 years. And Suncrest is a larger church. So today they'll have about 1,300 people at our church. I'm one of the pastors. I oversee our community involvement. I'm going to eat a cough drop while I talk, so that way, hopefully, at the end of this, you will still hear my voice. I oversee our community involvement and our serving all around the globe and our partners all around the globe. And so we are honored to be here. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about my home church. I grew up, I say this not to sound condescending, like America's just big. And so like geographically speaking, I grew up in St. Louis, which is about a 5-hour drive from where we live now. I've lived all over the country, and God's been good to me. My home church was outside of a city called St. Louis, a population of about 3 million people in St. Louis. And my home church was in a little neighborhood called Florissant. It was called the First Christian Church of Florissant. And I could talk all day about the church. Before I was born, my parents lived in some low-income housing, and their neighbor was a single mom named Barb. And my parents hadn't been in church. My mom really didn't grow up going to church. And my dad did, but had stopped going to church. And Barb said, you guys should go to this church with me. It's as simple as that. And so they went. I would tell you this. If it wasn't for Barb, I probably wouldn't be standing here today. Not just because she introduced me to my home church, but my mom and dad were trying to get pregnant. I was the last of 4 boys. And my mom was trying to get pregnant. She couldn't get pregnant. She was about to go back on birth control. And Barb was like, you should wait to make sure before you do that, because you could kill your child if you do it. And sure enough, my mom was pregnant with me. So with that, Barb invited them to church. There's actually a bulletin. Churches hand out bulletins in the United States. It's like a brochure or a pamphlet with all the information about the church going on that announced my birth back in the day. My home church, there's a lot that is amazing about it. But I can tell you the pastor at my church was the boringest preacher I've ever met in my life. But at least he would preach for 45 minutes every Sunday. I remember having to go to big churches, what we called the adult service. and just counting over and over again the 37. Yes, there were 37 blocks of stained glass above the baptistry. I still remember that number to this day because I counted them over and over again because that was more exciting than listening to him talk. But kids' church was amazing. And for as bad as a preacher Charles was, his wife Ruth was the most amazing woman on the planet. And she taught me so much about Jesus, about life. And I remember just running through those halls of the church building and having friends there. And they did stuff where I learned how to serve through camps and things like that, teaching other kids and serving all kinds of things, setting up tables and chairs for every occasion under the sun. I would not be who I am without the First Christian Church of Florissant. I think about my teenage years and all of the friends I had at church that kept me grounded in my faith. I think of a guy named Jamie Langford, who was a lawyer who also served the teens at my home church. And how many times he and I would sit and talk, and he patiently sat with me as a young teenage kid, just being a knucklehead. And does that term translate okay here? Knucklehead, you guys know that? Okay. All right. You know what that means, just an idiot. And just helping me through things. I remember my dad. My dad was an electrician by trade, very handy. Him going to the church to patch holes that I put in the walls because we were playing American football and my knee went through the wall, tackling my buddy Steve. Or when I was a junior in high school, a girl named Carrie really broke my heart, and I punched a wall and put my fist through it. And there's so many memories tied to that home church. So many of them are so great. But there were a lot of painful ones too. But it led me to be a pastor. And my home church isn't perfect, but every time I think of it, it still fills me with joy. And I remember the good times way above the bad times. I could talk to you about the mistakes they've made now that I'm a professional pastor and I see some of the dumb decisions they've made. I'm like, man, they could have navigated that a lot better, or how they failed to address the shift in culture in our community as the demographics of our neighborhood has shifted and all of that stuff. I could talk all day long about it. But I know that every person I interact with, every person that I get to influence for Jesus, wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the First Christian Church of Florissant. I wouldn't be standing here today. It's just mathematically impossible. But with God, it is possible. And I can tell you that the First Christian Church of Florissant started in the 1950s in a living room with 12 people. Started just like this. And they had no idea that it would grow and have the impact that it did. They had a dream. They had a hope. They had a vision. But God has used it. And what I want to tell you guys today is you guys are actually getting the privilege to be a part of that. You guys are starting this church that will be someone's home church. And literally for generations, people would go, if it wasn't for Living Hope Galway, I wouldn't be this. I wouldn't be that. And so what I want to talk to you about that today, and the importance of what God has placed before you. And as I say this, some of you might be a little nervous. You're like, whoa. I'm not really sure what I think about God or church or Jesus. Can you not lump me in with that? I just want to say it's okay. You don't have to. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. And you might have past church hurt and you're like, I'm not really sure what I think. Or you might think, I'm not really a leader. And so the idea of that being put on me as one of those originals that are there at the beginning, don't worry about that. You might be sitting here going, I'm really only here because I like Chris and Lorena, and they clearly need help as dumb Americans. And so I don't know why you're here, but I just want you to know that God has a reason for you to be here. And over the next little bit, I want to talk about how you guys are the perfect people to be here. One of the things that blows me away when I think about God is that he sent his son to the earth to die for our sins and to change the world and make a message so that everyone would have a chance to know him. And he came up with a strategy of using us. And like, I would love to have a conversation with God, go, that was really your best plan? Like, you sure you couldn't have had a better plan? Because we as humans are flawed. We make all kinds of mistakes. Clearly, God, there had to have been a better way. But he said, nope, this is my plan. And I'm going to use flawed people in little groups like this to transform the world and to share my message of hope, the gospel, the good news with the world. And it's, some of Jesus's last words before he left us after he died and rose again was to go and spread the gospel in all places and make disciples. And it's all built on this idea that conversation Jesus had with his followers a little while before, right before he went to the cross, when he said, who do people say I am? And there is a lag here that makes me so nervous. And so Simon Peter said, you are the Messiah. You are the Son of the living God. When Jesus is like, who do you say I am? And he's like, this is who you are. And Jesus said, you are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. Now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock, I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. And for 2,000 years, that rock has been the foundation of all churches. Whether you want to argue whether it's Peter or whether it's a statement, that's how churches are divided. We're not getting into a church history lesson today. But that fundamental truth that Jesus is the Messiah, the church has been built on for 2,000 years. And has the church gone wrong? Has the church, the Big C church, all of the churches, have we made mistakes? The answer is yes. Anytime humans are involved and anytime power and influence gets involved, sinful people will seek power. And that's what's happened in the church. And I'm not against big churches or churches having influence, but the early church was simple. The early church was adaptable, and it met in all these different little ways. And everyone had a role to play. And a lot of times in America, I don't know if it's true here, our churches get big. And what happens is people just come and they sit in chairs and they don't take an active part in the church. And I'm not saying that, I don't know if that happens here or maybe in some of the larger churches in other places. Thank you. I actually have my handy dandy water bottle there, but thank you so much. But the early church, it was a small group, and it required, even as it grew, it spread. It required that everyone played their part. And it says this in Romans chapter 12. We're going to see if this happens. All right. Man, I'm so terrified to hit the button too many times. Okay. We're cruising. I never do PowerPoint anymore, but that's what I'm doing today. So forgive me. Okay, there's one more. All righty. So this verse says this: in his grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you are a teacher, teach well. If your gift is encouraging others, be encouraging. If it is giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, take responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift of showing kindness to others, do it gladly. Don't just pretend to love others. Really love them. Hate what is wrong and hold tightly to what is good. And as you sit here today, you might go, I'm not really sure what my gifts are. That's okay. I am sure. We didn't talk about this ahead of time, so he's finding this out right now, but I'm sure Chris would love to talk with you about how God has gifted you and how you could play a role here. But one of the things that's very common in church leadership or in churches over in America is that people are like, yeah, I'd love to help, but like, I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader. Like, that's not who I am. I don't want to be up front. Even in a small group like this, it makes me uncomfortable to talk. And so I actually found this video a while back, and it's from a music festival in America like 15 years ago. The video quality is terrible. I'm not promoting the music that they're playing. I don't even think you can hear the music. But this guy broke it down and talked about leadership. And so what we're going to do is we're going to watch a video here, and we're going to hope that it plays. Come on. There we go. And so we're going to watch this video. And I think there's some really cool leadership that we can learn from it. There we go. Oh no. Oh, this. All right, so what I can tell you is this. So there's this music festival, and there's this guy. I'm going to narrate it for it because I've watched it so many times I can tell you what he's saying. This guy's out there dancing, and he looks like an idiot. He does. And then all of a sudden, this other guy comes along and starts dancing with him. And what you realize at that point is that the leader is going to get credit for starting something that happens. But without the followers, without people coming along and dancing with them, see, there's one guy now. And as it goes, you see that other people want to be a part of what's happening. And even through this janky video that just isn't working, you can see, like, they're not good dancers. There's nothing special about what they're doing. But by the leader embracing the first follower, all of a sudden, another guy comes, and then more come, and then more come, and then more come. And what happens is this guy starts out just by himself dancing, looking like an idiot. And Chris and Lorena already did that. They showed up here and they said, we're going to start this church in the city center. And the first couple of you that came along, you guys are some of those first followers. And you said, hey, I can do this. I see what they're doing. It's just this guy dancing like an idiot. I can follow that. Now, obviously, it's a little different here, right? But following is actually the most important thing. Leadership is so overrated because if everybody's trying to lead, you don't go anywhere. What is important for you guys that are here, that you're a part of this church, is being those first followers. That's what you are. And so you're going to mimic what you're seeing. You're going to join in. You're going to jump in on the mission of this church. And if the church ever wants to grow, if it ever wants to make a difference, it's going to be because you guys do. And you see over time in this video, this one crazy guy dancing on a hillside all of a sudden becomes a mob of people dancing just like him. And I'm not saying you like the image is bad, it's dumb. But the point is that other people will see what you're doing and they'll say, I want that. There's something different. It's definitely different than the other people that are just sitting on the grass watching at the beginning of this video, right? And so, yeah. No, go to the next slide, please, for the love of everything holy. Thank you. So the dancing guy in the video, he started something bold, but it started by himself. And then there was one guy, and actually I would say the growth was slow in the beginning. The one guy was there with him for a while, kind of on an island, just the two of them, looking weird. And then all of a sudden 3 came, then 4 came, then 5. And then it was like groups of people coming together. And what started out as something where you're like, yeah, I'm going to get made fun of if I go over there. It almost turned to a point where like, I'm going to get made fun of if I don't. And that's how movements work. And so there's a lot of things as first followers that are so important. And the Bible talked about some of the spiritual gifts, but I'll say the 3 most important things is that you're going to serve, that you're going to give, and that you're going to invite. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to spend the rest of my time just talking about what that looks like. And I'm going to do it kind of all over the place. So just forgive me. I'm going to tell stories about my friends. Giving is such a funny thing, and so many people have baggage about church and churches asking for money. The nice part for me, I'm a pastor. I can stand up here and tell you that you should financially support this, and I gained nothing from it. So if you're like, well, the only reason he's saying that is because it benefits him, I promise you it doesn't. The Bible teaches time and time again that when we give financially, God teaches us that he is the provider of everything. And I want to tell you about my friend. I was going to tell you his name, but then I realized I have people here that know him. And I was thinking as a guest speaker, I could just tell you. And then I'm like, oh, no, I can't. Because they know this person. So even though it's a big church and there's a lot of people, it's easy to figure out who I'm talking about. But he and his wife were just school teachers. And they're retired now, but they were faithful and they put money away and they saved. And God has been like weirdly generous to them and blessed them in ways that don't make sense. And when you ask them about it, they're in their 60s now and they're retired. And it's like, I don't understand it. God grew our money in the stock market in ways that don't make sense. And so now they're incredibly generous to the church. They're incredibly generous when people want to go on these kind of trips to faithfully support them. We'll do stuff sometimes and he'll come up to me and go, hey, if somebody wants to do that and they can't afford to pay for that, you tell me, because I'll make sure it happens. And there's something so beautiful about they faithfully gave 10% when they had nothing, and now they have a lot, and they still faithfully give. And a lot of times we think, well, someday when I'm wealthy like them, I can do that. But they wouldn't have a heart to do it if they didn't start small. I grew up in a household where my parents were faithfully required me to give. And so I'd get an allowance of $2 every week. And they'd be like, well, you better give 20 cents to church. And it was easy. Like, it wasn't easy, but it was a lot easier to give 20 cents than now when I look at it and I go, that's a car payment. That's a lot of money. Like, you want me to give what? And so just to know that, like, wherever you're at, you can start there. I can tell you about my friend Scott. He attended a church I used to attend and our work at, and 20% of our congregation of about 500 people could trace their first invite back to Scott. Like, he just had a passion for inviting people. He's like, you got to come see this church. It's the greatest thing ever. And people will be like, I've seen church. I'm not interested. And he's like, no. Our church is different. And I imagine those of you that are here, you go, no, our church is different. There's some really cool things that are happening here. You want to be a part of this. Serving. I want to tell you about my friend Sulene. Sulene is an amazing woman. She's also in her 60s. During COVID, she got to retire. She was not financially ready to retire. She didn't want to retire. But she worked as an admin in a law office, and a law office that does foreclosures, meaning if you can't pay for your mortgage, the bank takes the house from you. Well, during COVID, our government said that was illegal. You can't do that to people. So she literally lost her job because the whole business that she worked for, the lawyers kept their jobs. Don't worry. I know you were worried for them. They still keep their 6-figure job. She lost her job. 6-figure, that's over $100,000 a year. That's a good job in America. Anyways, she lost her job in that. And so she was at a point where she's like, do I try to even start over again? No. But she lives very meekly. But she saw I needed help because I'm not the most detail-oriented person. I don't know if you've gathered that from me in the last 20 minutes, but that's true. And she works 20 hours a week at the church for me, being my admin. And she leads what we call our compassion team. And when people are in need, we actually set aside 2 hours a week, every Thursday afternoon from 2 to 4. Anybody can come in and receive assistance. We have $50 cards for gas or for like Aldi, which I realized you guys have Aldi here. I noticed that. Anyways, we love Aldi in America. It's great. But what happens is we'll have anywhere from 5 to 17 families come in. It's either a single person or a couple come in together, and they just need help. And yeah, the gift card's going to help. But what Suline does is she and a couple of volunteers, they know these people. And when they walk through the door, she's like, oh, that's Mike. He hasn't been here since. And she's got her notes. And she's like, it's been 3 months since we've seen Mike. And he just started a job over at this place. I'm going to ask him about that. And like, she knows these people by name. And for someone who's in need, oftentimes, yes, they think they need that gift card. They think they need the money. But to have someone just sit there and look them in the eyes and know their story, remember their story, and care for them, it's truly remarkable. There's so many ways you can serve, and I'm going to totally embarrass my team. But we're a big church, and there's a lot of ways you can serve. But honestly, the 7 of us that are here, if you come to Suncrest, there's nothing, and I mean this in the best way possible, there's nothing special about them. They would be anonymous. But like my friend Lisa, Lisa's been coming to Suncrest for maybe a year and a half. And within months, she started serving with our kids, with our teenagers. But she also serves with a group called Sojourner, which helps women who are basically homeless get the skills and resources that they need. So every month she's serving with that team. And it's doing glamorous stuff like folding new socks and underwear and putting it into bags for them. It's really glamorous. Or like in the summer, they do a garden. And so she's out in the garden pulling weeds and planting. Like, it's so glamorous what she gets to do. Or Candy, she serves every week teaching kids in that classroom right there. And like, I'll walk by the classroom with like 20 kids in there, and she's like up on stage acting a fool. And does that phrase translate? Like, just being silly with the kids and leading them and singing. And like, it's so really cool. Allie serves on a team. Like, if you look at our church's website, like, there's going to be great pictures of all these different experiences. And she's on a team taking photos every week. You don't serve every week, right? But like every other week or something like that. It's truly remarkable. Hannah and Vanna, yeah, their names rhyme. I love it. Like, they work with the teenagers. I have a 14-year-old daughter. And Hannah, you're awesome, but like, she would kill you to protect Vanna because she thinks the world of Vanna. Vanna is the coolest person on the planet in my daughter's eyes. And if I want her to do something, I'm going to ask Vanna to tell her, because she'll actually listen if Vanna told her. She won't listen to me at this point. And Bobby works with the teens too, but Bobby might be the handiest person I've ever met. And we had a friend who bought a house, and it was broken. Like, it needed so much work. And I don't think Skylar knew how to use a screwdriver. And Bobby spent 20 to 30 hours a week putting this guy's house back together and faithfully just used the gifts God gave him. And there are so many different ways. And that's what I want you to see, guys, is there are so many ways you can serve his church. And you can serve however he created you. And there's going to be ways that pop up. And whether it's through a Jesus walk or with kids or part of the worship service or leading a group or inviting others, God has given you special gifts. And you guys are starting something special here. Literally generations from now, 30, 40, 50 years from now, people are going to go, my whole faith story started when I attended Living Hope Galway. Or I wouldn't know who Jesus was if my parents didn't stumble into this church. And so every person that they impact will be a direct result of the work that you guys are putting in now. And so, yeah, you're starting small, and that's okay. God has incredible things. In America, we oftentimes think bigger is better. You guys probably don't have that same addiction that we do and same brokenness in us. But God is doing something special here, and you get to be a part of it. So hold on to that. But know that as it grows, that it's just more and more for people experiencing that same hope in Jesus that you have. And you have the tremendous blessing to get to be a part of this. So I'm going to pray and then kind of close out my time. Father, I thank you for the fact that you choose to use us. Lord, I don't know why you chose us. I don't know why you chose to create the church to be your tool for sharing the gospel with the world. But I thank you that you chose us. Lord, for Living Hope Galway, for what you have in store for this body. Lord, I pray a blessing on it. I pray for more and more people to experience your hope here, for lives to be changed, for hope to be found, for generations to be changed because of your good news that they're finding here. And so, Lord, for each and every person that's here, for those who couldn't be here today, Lord, I just pray that you gift them, you bring them together, and you use their gifts so that your name will become more famous here in a place that is becoming more and more further away from you. Like so much of the world, we look around and we see that people are pushing you away at a higher rate, it feels like, than they ever have in places that used to be very Christian, places that used to be filled with people that wanted to follow you. Lord, help us to be a light to the world. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.